So the birth, how many types of births can you have? Naturally, well, not even naturally, really, but normally, I don't even think that's, can't even say normal either. From what we have learned, you're born strictly just through a woman. And the woman, well, she was always a woman. And what I've learned was, well, through my birth in the YouTube platform, is that women can actually have babies, and they used to be men. And the proof of that is, just look it up. Google how a lizard, reptilian, parthenogenesis is able to reproduce strictly on its own. So basically it's a male and a female combined together. It's like a mother, father, creator. I believe, so these are all my beliefs, this is all of my opinions, assumptions, conjectures, some will be accusations, but that's only because I don't actually have any proof. But just because I have accusations, it also doesn't mean that it's not true as well, just because I don't have proof to be able to show you, or whoever. So, coming into the YouTube platform, it was a birth for me. There was one birth that I had, but again, I don't really, it's not like I'm King David and I remember the actual conception from the day. It's like you go from being the king to the day you die, and then there's a period of time. I would say it's like 40 days is a good enough amount of time for God to really explain stuff to you, get you prepared. And if you have to go back down to the earth because you have a I don't know, maybe that could have been what happened with Christ, is that maybe he was King David and then he died, and then his seed continues on. So he dies, he goes to heaven, and then he remembers being birthed down here on earth. Or it's, it's a seed, it's a David could be the ruler of the YouTube platform, or the island of Patmos. But there's people that don't like him, and they would be it's like I go back and forth with the amount of people that are in charge. So who's really in charge? Well, in charge of what? The world. Multiple people are, because the world consists of everything, the entire world. There's a new one happening. It's being formed. It takes 6,000 years, 6 years, 6 days, whichever way you want to look at it. 6,006 or 6 days, years. Day is a year. Don't be ignorant of one thing. The Bible is crunched up into smaller numbers, like 7,000 years. It's really 7 in today's world. So you have King David. He's a king, but yet he's on the run all the time because Saul is trying to kill him. Saul sends both of his daughters his way. That Mikhail is the last one, the first one. It's like sending his daughters. Whether or not they were actually physically born female or not is a different story. So it sounds like Saul was pretty much Satan, at least influenced by Satan, because he wants to kill David. And he was the ruler of the earth because people wanted him to be their king. They wanted him to be like the other nations, having kings over them. But they damn sure didn't want Jesus as their king, because when he came onto the scene, they were all gang stalking him and following him, and they all knew that he had no actual authority to do anything. Although they expected him to overturn the Roman government, but they couldn't see because their eyes were blinded by their leader, and so they had no patience. So they went ahead and got inverted, and what I believe is a lot of them, if not all of them, they changed from male to female. Or even if they were female, they added the tree of life. It's like an additive from the serpent race, because why else was Eve beguiled by the serpent? And what represents a serpent on your body? What it's like another worm. And then what is it that was so enticing for Eve to get beguiled by the serpent and then to eat of the fruit from that tree and give it to Adam to eat? And then Adam blames her, and then she blames the serpent. It's all a blame game, because they were naked. They could have had their clothes fully on. They were just found to be naked. Adam and Eve. They were found out by God, and he found out that he exposed their nakedness. You see, the people didn't like God's nakedness, like Kim Jong, like how he was saying it. He was saying that he can't stand it, and because that's the way it is. It's like God's so open that you don't like it, because you'd rather have hidden things. But remember, even the demons are subjected. And that's what Christ was telling his apostles, disciples. Even the demons are subjected to you guys. They have to tell you the truth. Whether they like it, God's nakedness or not, doesn't matter. It's James' way too, just so you know. And that's how you cast demons out. How come they couldn't cast that demon out of Stephen, James, and Sean? Well, because it takes prayer and fasting for that one. Not something that happens fast. It's something that happens for like over 6 years. It's something like that. That's how. Because you got to be the punching bag. You got to be the one praying for the person. You got to be the one fasting a long time, continuously taking a beating and fighting back. That's how you cast demons out of someone that is fully possessed by demons, like Mary Magdalene. 7 of them. Kim Jong was talking about, well, what other kind of birth are they talking about? With Jesus, it's when he was a baby. Well, that's one of the births. When he came down to the earth. Was he even born on planet Earth? Or was he... See, the thing with that is, there's a few ways of looking at it. Was he literally God's son, meaning God's seed, sitting in the heavens, the one that is considered the image of God, the one that rules above, like Enlil, and then the one that rules below, like Enki? Was it his actual seed from up there, and then he placed it into the Virgin Mary? Or is the one way that Virgin Mary conceived Jesus is because here's what happened. Satan needed to convert all the people on earth, or at least create his own earth down here, because this place was meant for him and his demons. Was he it's funny when I get text messages is what I'm talking about, because then I remember what I'm talking, who texts me and what am I saying at the moment. Because with God having his own seed, well, it may not even have been like his sperm per se, but the seed and spirit, and that's what it's all about. Satan will try to make you think it's a literal birth. In other words, like a literal birthing of baby Jesus down here on earth. And then technically it's his son, Satan, it's his son, but he'll raise him up as if his son is Jesus. But he's really a counterfeit, and he's an antichrist. He's the antichrist. But making sure, because what is it saying? Can anything good come from Nazareth, number one? And then, can anything good come from, I don't know, a child being birthed through a woman? Considering, because Mary means, what does that mean again? Not disobedient, but nothing good coming out of the, I forget what the definitions a lot of times, that what Click says. Basically, it's like no one can come from a woman on earth and be good. So Satan made sure that what he did was, the way that children are born is through the male to female parthenogenesis. You become a Virgin Mary, and that Virgin Mary has children. And how can a Jesus come from that, is what I get out of it. Well, here's how. It doesn't matter, because the Spirit of God is going to run through that specific vessel, however that vessel was born. So, was Jesus born on earth through the Virgin Mary, where Mary actually technically had sex with God, for the Virgin Mary, but not the Virgin Mary you're thinking of, which is the transformation of male to female Virgin Mary, but someone named Mary, who was a virgin, legitimately, and then the child was birthed through a spirit. It seems impossible, doesn't it? Because you have to have literal seed in order to have a literal birth. But you can also have a birth of a child. And then what Kim Jean is saying is this: baby Jesus was born, and then the angels ministered to him, correct? Well, no, not at all. That's incorrect. It's far from the truth. Because considering that Kim is saying that Jesus was only born once, well, if he was born as a baby and then the angels came and ministered to him, if you perceive the story that Jesus was a perfect being and never sinned, never went astray, like, you can literally just, he's 4 months old, 6 months old, you can let him out in the middle of the camel path streets back then, as suppose you interpret it. And he won't even run out into the middle of the street. He won't lie about anything naturally, because children lie like, did you just take that cookie? No. And meanwhile, there's crumbs dribbling down their cheek. Do you think this guy purposely pulled over just to get in my lane because I'm going to make a right-hand turn? Do you think that he did that? What do you think? Because what I'll do is I'll make a right-hand turn, and I could be making a right-hand turn now, which means I would save probably a minute. I'd get to work a minute earlier, but considering this is street theater and he's acting like he broke down or something. See, it's a damn shame. That guy has to stop because I'm driving by to do a tactic just to get in my way, just to stall me for a moment or two. It's a pathetic world I live in. I don't think I'm from here, but I'm here. Here I am. Yeah, got you, buddy. And if I drive back around a half a minute later, the truck will be gone. No, it won't. It'll still be there because the Gangstalk Corporation, Satan, he knows what I would do, so he would make sure that he would keep them there just so I wouldn't know. There's no way that I can catch anybody doing anything. Because like Kim said, Satan knows Scripture as well, and he knows what God's going to do also before he does it. Like the Philadelphia Art Museum footage. So, if you think a human being can be perfect his entire life, living on earth in the flesh, just like you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind because Satan pulled you out of your mind into a lie land. A land of lies. Lando lie. Lio Lake. That's why he came to earth in flesh form, to live as everybody else in the sinful flesh. Why do you think he hung out with the tax collectors, the money exchangers, the hookers? What are hookers? Where do you find hookers at today? You find them on the street corners, you find them in strip bars, you find them on porn sites. Jesus hung out with them. Why would he do that? He was perfect. Well, what birth are you talking about? You talking about a regular birth from baby birth? Nobody ever can possibly not sin, especially from a baby to 30 years old. And he supposedly died at 33, but yet they said, you're not yet even 50 years old, and you said that you've seen Abraham, who's our father? If he was 30 years old, they would have said, you're not yet 40 years old. Can't you tell a 10-year-old difference between the people? And then it took 46 years to build this temple. You're going to destroy it and rebuild it in 3 days? That sounds like a 50-year process altogether. So the birth as a child, every child goes astray. Every person needs to be reborn because Satan owns your ass in the flesh. And then considering he gets you first in the flesh, when your body dies, your soul goes back to God, and then God gets his way. Because you're already here, being tormented day and night. I know I am being tormented. Not that I'm being tormented, but people and things in the spirit of Satan tries to torment me day in and day out through everybody, one way or another. So I'll tell you my belief. I don't believe Jesus was perfect as a human being walking the earth from birth, as a baby, as if angels ministered to him, because nobody can possibly be perfect. That's why he had to die. He gave up his life. You didn't take it. Nobody took his life. If you took somebody's life, what does that mean? You murdered him. He gave it up. Now, does that mean he voluntarily walked to a cross somewhere where like, hey, Jesus, you think you're Jesus? Well, come on, let's kill you. No, I believe that it was a, unless I see it with my own eyes differently, he gave up his life, because that's why his disciples were they're asking him in the Chosen movie too. They're like, so you mean we're gonna die? And he's like, you're going to know what it means to give up your life. I have something to tell you. You're going to understand what it's like to give up your life. Okay, stupids. Okay, dummies. You're gonna give up your life. You're gonna stop being selfish with all the money that you guys make on that YouTube platform, with all those donations and all the monetizations and all your multiple channels. You're gonna give up your life. You're gonna start sharing your funds. Somebody's not gonna like it, which could be, the Saul on earth, but let's say he's in charge and then he turns into Paul the Apostle. A lot of people are in deep doo-doo. Kind of reminds me of Jonah too. All they got Jonah and then the king of Nineveh. So considering that there's a perfection in Jesus at a certain point, but from birth as a baby would get you to believe. What the hell? I don't know, is that a fire drill? Like all these people, this school is so packed, I'm surprised I can even get there. So it's at a certain point because that would make sense. And here's the tie-in. This is why when Kim Jean is teaching, he even told you, check your scripture, because I could be lying to you. Now, if you even say that you could be lying, well, then there's a devil that is still inside of you. And it's not like I'm going to try to cast him out. It's just, if you say I could be lying to you, but then that means there's a possibility that you would lie. Lying is of the devil. It's not of God. It's the exact opposite. So there's that. And the interpretation would go towards, all right, well, there's his birth. And then when he gets older, we're going to kill him. Well, here's the thing. Considering all things, living in the flesh, there's no way that you can be perfect. Nobody, ever. Not even baby Jesus. Until a certain point, perfection is the fact that you had already died because you gave up your life for the sins of the whole world. And as you're in the risen state, because Christ would have had to have come straight to Paul himself in order for Paul to realize, oh, there you are. All right, well, hey, time to switch gears. And then that means he's already risen, so there is no death of that part. Because the birth from that point on, he is perfect. He can't sin anymore. Nobody can sin anymore whose sins have been paid for, because Satan does not have a hold of you any longer. You know why? It's like the future has already been written. Your sins have already been forgiven. So therefore, any sins you do in the past, the present, and the future are already paid for. But that's not a guarantee either if you're still evil in the heart and you truly aren't converted and you're a lying sneak, and you'll say, hey, well, I can continue to do this because Christ died for me. No, he never died for you because you don't even know him. He only died for the ones that he knew, because there's going to people come to him like, Lord, Lord, never knew you. Yeah, you did. We knew each other in the back room because you're the sodomite Jesus, right, Lord? No, no, no. I mean, I never knew you that way either, because there's a perverted interpretation, and that would be that one who got inverted, the false prophet, the one that wrapped it up. Yep, wrapped it up. What did he wrap up? His tree of life. Just like that picture I showed you in the art museum, when my wife is pointing to it, it's pointing and showing you in great detail an x-ray of what's inside of the host body. So Jesus being perfect, well, yeah, after he rose from the dead, of course you're going to be perfect, because your sins have been paid for as well. You can no longer sin because sin does not have a hold of you where it's going to take you to hell when you die, because it's already been paid for. But what kind of sin are we talking about? Porn? Is that a sin? Masturbation? Is that a sin? Lying? What's worse? Watching porn or being a liar? Or lying about watching porn? That's even worse. How about lying? I mean, let's just start there. What's worse than lying? Being a murderer? How about if you're a lying murderer? But what if you're a murderer and you tell the truth? Well, either one, you'll be in jail, or two, A, maybe an ex-murderer like Paul, and now you're telling the truth, and your heart's converted, and your sins are paid for as well. So let's take all that in consideration with baby Jesus being born and angels ministering to him. If that was the case as a baby, well, then that baby would be perfect. He would know exactly what to do. Those angels would have ministered to him like no other. You know how you guys are doing it right now on the YouTube platform? Ministering? Angels? Demons are even subjected to him. Let's consider time of birth not being as a physical baby, but at a certain time coming into the temple, like the YouTube temple, and having a birth from that point on. Hopping into a wilderness land that, because I can relate to this story, that's why I'm telling it. I was rejected by everybody from the very beginning. I don't really, well, you know, I'm saying from the very beginning, which in other words, Derek from Aglapa Truth, Jerry from A Light of Truth, Tyler Mullen, Boldly Roly Polioli, Stephen James Deshawn, Justin Michael, Tim Sater, Jethro Sater, Ashley, Matthew Daly. I mean, there's others, but I don't have time. There's at least 12 of them, maybe 13. It's funny to number. And they all, I mean, I thought they were my friends within the first year. I wasn't even 12 months old. And then they all turned against me. Matthew Daly, he crucified me with words, and he wrote everything down like a scribe, like the tax collector Matthew, and he had it on his book, and his book said 6 p.m. because that's where he started to crucify me, and he did it for 3.5 hours. I could only hang there for 3 hours. I had to give up my spirit and say, I am finished with this, and step away. And that was on the 11th month of my first day, 111. Since joining YouTube, 11 years, 11 months, 11 days after Joel Karim uploaded the very first video on YouTube on April 23rd, 2005. I started April 2nd, 2017. 11 years, 11 months, 11 days later. 11 months, 1 day, 111 days later, I was crucified with Matthew Daly. Matthew Daly had 111 subscribers, and it was on 3/2/2018, Good Friday. I wasn't even 12 months old. I'm talking, having conversations with these top-tier Mr. Know-It-Alls like Matthew Daly. He crucified me through words, left me for dead. It was my 69th, well, it was 69 years since the nation of Israel became a nation again. I was cut off at that time by all my peers who turned against me, except for Stephen James DeShawn as of the moment, but he's the one orchestrating it all. So it's like it kind of doesn't count because I didn't know, but I caught on very quickly. Because July 2nd, 2018, I said it's time to make a stand for SJD. And then 2 months later, I think I started to say it's time to stand on SJD. Then like 6 months later, I'm like, you know what? It's time to understand SJD, because I was deceived. Because even the very elect shall be deceived. All within the first year, all right? All before the 70th year anniversary of the nation of Israel becoming a nation again, and it being destroyed on 70 AD, which was not even a year since I started YouTube in 2018. 70 AD. I started YouTube 5 months later, in 21 days, the Revelation 12 sign happened. It just passed 6 months ago. The guy's all over the road. He almost sideswiped me too. People like that, I stay behind them. Let them go. Oh, the amount of stuff I found out in 6 years, it's just astronomical. The stuff that has happened, transcending time, being here, watching a YouTube video show me the future in the present moment in the art museum. I wasn't supposed to record that footage. Well, you weren't supposed to steal my footage 30 years ago and act like I wasn't the one that directed your YouTube videos. YouTube, Bono, Edge. Yeah, this guy needs to, he's like drunk or something. So in my YouTube birth, after 40 years old, being because I was tempted, I was tested in the wilderness for 40 years, and then as soon as I was just about finished the 40th full year, I was 2 months old into the YouTube platform, and I started having like these people coming in my direction, whether they were angels or demons, fallen angels ministering to me. With a 40-year process, I'm 47 now. My white Ferrari was outside of St. Peter and Paul Basilica, 914-407R was the license plate. 914, which is Robin Henry T's in gematria, and Stephen James made that number up for me. 40, and then 7, and then R for Robin, which would be 47 full years old. So we're talking 2024. I'm just assuming on my birthday that car's going to be there again at the same spot, and that's how I know to pick it up. Because that'll be a 7-year tribulation period. Also, I'm already in my 7th year, 6 full years from starting YouTube. A lot of tribulation has happened for a lot of people, and then there will be, I think there just may be another 7-year tribulation, but that would be for the Jews, because it's like another 7 years of, it's my turn now, bitches. It's my turn after 7 years. Because right now, there's a lot of YouTube channels that are ministering to me, and you guys know it because I'm communicating back and forth with you. It's not a secret. It's just the reason why these are parables is because I can say whatever I want. There's no actual evidence of it. I can just be looked at as Robin's out of his mind from my peers, my family members, my coworkers, whoever watches my videos secretly. Robin's out of his mind, but yet, how does he know what's in our belly? I don't know. Something is going on here, but I'm not sure, but I don't like it. Maybe you think I'm going to die. Maybe I couldn't be so lucky. You think I'm afraid of it? Absolutely not. Brian Mazurek. Hey, Brian. You're in heaven right now, aren't you? The funny thing is, people in heaven can still be learning about what's going on down here on earth because you're experiencing communication. I know for a fact where people are when they're not here on earth. They didn't disappear. Someone like my friend, he wasn't the best friend I had, but a real good friend. Anytime you're around them, good energy, a huge heart, and just loved people. And someone like that, no matter what happens on earth, their soul is already prepared to go to heaven. So whether he watches my videos now or Steve Ben-Nun shows him, sends it to him, hey Brian, it's sad to see you go, but I'm not going to be too selfish because boy, you sure are having a good time up there, aren't you? Well, and that's the thing down here on earth. People think death is so terrible. Well, I mean, I don't know. It depends on who you are. So anyway, for my birth, I was born supposedly in Bartow Regional Medical Center. It was called General Hospital at the time. I'm in the Truman Show, the leading star role player. My wife, I believe, is playing the lady, the character, acting like she's not part of the organization. I don't know exactly how the end of the story works, but exit door to the left, and then at what point do you come back to set shit straight here on Earth? You got to convert the ruler of this earth and cast Satan out of him. The spirit of Satan needs to go back into spirit and not physically taking over the person. So that's why I'm here, to convert Jonathan Kleck, all three of them. JJJ, all of yous. 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John. Convert yous all right here in Philadelphia and over the YouTube platform. My birth started when I was 40 years old as a grown-ass man. Well, not really, immature, but supposedly grown. Sort of like a man, but a child at the same time. And then growing up, talking, having conversations with the rulers of the YouTube platform. I wasn't even 12 months old. Being forsaken by my parents. Not that I hold anything against my mom or dad, but it's just the truth. It's the reality of it. I was the youngest, the fifth born, the least but not last. Even though I was the last born, but I was the firstborn when it comes to the YouTube platform flipping things upside down and telling the truth. Firstborn. Youngest, but the firstborn in this platform. It's my father's house. He works here also. My father, who is being represented in the spirit land, even on the YouTube platform itself, the image, when Steve Ben-Nun hops up and teaches, to me, he's representing the image of God. To me, Jonathan Kleck's representing the image of Satan. Stephen James, he is definitely Not Kim Jean, but Gene Rebel. No question about it. I've come to my final answer. Stephen James Deshawn is Gene Rebel, without a doubt. John from Denver is, without a question, Creepy John. John Wise III. Without a doubt, that's who you are. You know, I don't even get upset anymore at, even if you blatantly just lie and say, no, I'm not. But I like how you tell me the truth without saying it. I didn't like that about Justin Michael. He always denied. Although one time he did say, I work for the Illuminati, all right? How can I be any more clear? But it's people that deny that they're part of the inside which bothers me. When they blatantly lie. No, here's what it is. When you blatantly lie, turn it around on me as if I'm insane or I'm the lunatic liar myself. Call me. That I can't stand for. When you do it the way John from Denver does, it is perfect. I'll give it to you. When you do it the way Stephen James does, you know how much he lies about me? That's all good, Steve. I forgive you. There's no problem. Because you know the Holy Spirit. It's just the way you go about it. It's your tone of voice. It's how you do it. It's if you're pointing. And that's the thing with John from Denver. You can also be your real self and not get paid telling the truth, on your channel. But then you can hop into the creepy ass freaking John from Pennsylvania and keep threatening me about my bird and call me a ravenous bird from the east. Well, thanks for the name East, because that's where I'm from. Tidings out of the east will trouble the old tyrant from the west, because the king of the north and the king of the south are fighting with each other on the same side. So that would be a problem for the old tyrant from the west, even if it was all the way from Hawaii, Maui, Christopher Greenway Boardwalk star, Johnny Kleck. One of yous. So it's a different birth for me. I don't believe it's the same birth, the way that Jesus was perfect from birth and had angels minister. I believe it's the exact opposite. I believe he was left alone. I believe he was gang stalked his entire life, neglected, and I believe that at a certain point with his birth, he was being ministered to. There's also a birth in the YouTube platform and a death and a resurrection in the YouTube platform as well. So not only are you born once, but you're born twice into a platform like the island of Patmos. Then you're killed, and then you are born again because now you're resurrected. So it's like 3 births because there's 2 of them in spirit. There's a spiritual birth of taking over, hopping into an internet platform. Then there's the death where they kill you and leave you for dead. Then there's a resurrection, and then you go to Paul and be like, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Which is the resurrection takeover of that same platform, which is the house of God, which is considered another gang stalking tactic in the middle of the street, coming from the devil himself. To take over, but his time is up. He knows his time is up. And that's why he's going to use everybody he possibly can against me, including my own wife, and get everybody to be convinced that I don't know anything and I'm not taking over this platform at any point, and nobody's actually going to help me like Steve Ben-Nun in the end. So if Satan can convince you of that, and if he can convince you that the rulers of the planet, the leaders of the universe, haven't all been changed over, converted, and they already kicked Satan out of their life. But we're still going through the timing of it. You still have to fulfill the script. No matter how your heart is, it may be tougher for you because you're more godly, and it's kind of sickens you that you're even doing it. And it's like, oh well, whatever. Look, my sins are forgiven, paid for. We gotta finish out this show, Robin. All right, I get it. I understand. Can't wait for the end of it. But in the meantime, if Satan can convince you of all that, well, you will be deceived. Just like I was. I suffered long time. It's time for rewards. This next year, it's going to be a sweet year. Things are going to start switching, turning around. Just like factory vehicles, like the new Cyclone Chevy. Next year, 2024, supposedly it's only like $25,000, and it is a husky built, badass. Like it's kind of truck that it's a smaller version, but it has like a bigger front and back, and like this kind of truck, and it's hooked up from the factory, and it's cheaper. That's what I'm talking about. That's like flipping the money exchangers over. That's like Christ being in charge of the way things are going to be now. Instead of these just Priuses from the factory, what's the point of even having them? Things are going to be nice and hooked up already from the gate. Sort of like how heaven is. How cool is heaven right now when you're up there, as you're watching my video right now? There's no there's no junker clunkers up there, is there? There's no gas, it's all electric. It's all perfect, beautiful. All bodies are perfection. Absolutely perfected. Now angels are ministering to me, not 47 years ago.